All right, today first let me apologize for not having this video ready when it was supposed to be. But today we are going to do some more work with the camshaft. We have 2 bolts to put in, and then we want to start getting the rocker arms, the rocker arm shafts, the cam end covers, all that stuff. We'll see how far we get today. So today what you're going to need is, you should have a bag labeled Cam Sprocket, and that sprocket right there was in it, and hopefully these 2 bolts and maybe even this thin spacer washer thing was in there too. At the moment we're going to need just the 2 bolts. If you take a look at these 2 bolts, you will notice that they are not identical. One is threaded all the way, one is threaded about halfway, and then it has a smooth area leading up to the head of the bolt. That's called the shoulder. So this is called a shouldered bolt. Right now, the first one we're going to put in is the one that's threaded all the way. And that goes in the hole that is closest to the L mark on the cam sprocket. Now, this is kind of a delicate procedure because these are tiny, and if you drop them in the engine and they happen to fall down inside, you have to take this engine apart. So this is worth being extra careful. So put down the shouldered bolt in some place that you won't lose it, and you need to rotate the camshaft and or the cam sprocket enough so that the holes line up. And it's also important that this cam sprocket is on the camshaft. It's easy to have the cam sprocket pushed off a little bit or angled a little bit and you don't know it. There's almost no way to know it until you find that you're struggling mightily to put that bolt in. So pull them up and twist the cam shaft back and forth, wiggle it up and down, and make sure that this cam shaft and this sprocket are flush against each other. I've got another one here, I'll show you what I mean. So it would be like this, and it would be like this. So right here, I'm holding it. You can see that you can even hear the metal against metal. That's flush. These metal holes here are flush with the metal of the cam sprocket, and it would be easy for me to put the bolts in right now. But because this is in here inside the engine, you could have this like tilted away a little bit. It might not be sitting on this surface right here. This surface right here is where this cam sprocket has to sit. So if you don't have this perfectly flush, you are going to have a lot of trouble putting those bolts in. And you might even cross thread them, which would be a disaster. So take an extra second to make sure that you have things lined up. And peek in there and try and get the hole on the cam sprocket and the hole on the camshaft as lined up as you possibly can. And with your fingers, start threading this bolt through. And it should not take lots of effort. This shouldn't be a hard thing to turn. If it's fighting you, then you don't have things lined up. Your cam sprocket is not square. Like if you look at mine, you can see right away that that bolt is coming in at an angle because I don't have things lined up. So I need to keep kind of shaking things around a little bit. And as I'm shaking things, I keep twisting gently, and that it will kind of find its home. And there. That bolt goes in very easily. And I'm twisting it until it stops. I'm not forcing it anymore. We're not tightening it right now, we're just putting it on. So I've got one bolt on. You should still have the L mark facing up, the nub right here pointing up, and your LT mark on your rotor down here. The LT mark should still be matched up. This LT mark right here should still be matched up with this notch. All those need to still be happening here. Okay, now what we're doing, we're going to have to rotate this camshaft. And if we rotate it and it doesn't spin perfectly with the crankshaft underneath, it is already going to be out of timing. And the timing is extremely important. The timing determines when the spark happens compared to where the pistons are. So if we were to spin this camshaft even 1 degree and the crankshaft did not move with it, it is out of timing. We have to take the bolt out. We have to line all these things back up and try again. Because this camshaft is not tight, it's extremely easy for things to fall out of timing. So these steps are a pain in the butt. There's no two ways about it. We have to put the cam ends on just to keep this camshaft tight while we spin it around. We have to take them off. It's going to be off and on, off and on. So get yourself in proper headspace. You need both of these cam ends. So pause the video for a second and go grab these. And this one here that has the nose on it, that goes on the right side, and this faces forward. Remember, this is the front of the engine, so this part faces forward. And on this one, this little notch right here, that goes down. And these two ends go in. So you're going to put them on like this. It should go on these should go on pretty easily right now. That's not always the case, but so I had to smack them with an open hand. You might have to use your mallet. You might have to use your mallet to tap them on. And on the right side, you can tap it in the dead center where that nose is sticking out. On the left side, you're going to be tapping it not in the middle because the dead center is the camshaft. You don't want to hit the camshaft, you want to hit the cover. So spend a second getting these on. And really the only reason we put them on is so that we can spin the engine and spin the camshaft and everything stays in line and stays in timing. So we're going to be taking them off in a minute. So now you need your 14mm wrench or a 14mm ratchet and socket. And we're going to spin the rotor until we get the other hole up at the top so that we can put the other bolt in. Right there. The other bolt is the shouldered one. Make sure that this cam sprocket is still pressed flush against the cam shaft. And hopefully this goes in nice and easy. If it does not, then that means this camshaft needs to be wiggled around a little bit, pushed back and forth, left and right, up and down, and keep wiggling it until that bolt goes in very, very easily. And I'm turning it with my fingers until it stops. So you might want to pause the video while you do that, of course. I hope I don't even need to repeat that. It should be obvious. You got to pause things while I'm doing things. Now we want to tighten these two bolts up, and we have to tighten them to a specific torque spec. So we are on page 74 in the manual, and we have just done step 11. At the bottom of step 11, it gives the torque bolt spec. Torque both bolts to 13 to 15 foot-pounds. So if we get our torque wrench out, where did I put mine? That's pretty frustrating. So your torque wrench, you're going to need to put a couple things on here. You're going to need to put your adapter, so it goes from a 3/8 drive to a 1/4 inch drive. That would be this guy. Put your adapter on, and then you're going to need your long 1/4 inch. You got your adapter, you got your long 1/4 inch extension, and you're going to need a 10 millimeter socket that fits on a 1/4 inch extension. So that is the 1/4 inch drive. Remember, the drive refers to the size of the square at the end. This is a 1/4 inch drive. It's a 10 millimeter socket. This is what you're going to need. Now we can't access this because we've got this on. So we're going to have to pull this one off, get in here, tighten this up, put it back on, rotate the engine again, take this off, put this in, tighten it up. So it's a lot of steps, it's a lot of repeating, but it's really the only way to do it. Okay, so first step, I'm going to take the end cover off. And there's a little bit of tension on there. It's kind of hard to pull off. If you need to, I don't know if you remember how we got these off in the first place, but we had a screwdriver that we, this was the wrong screwdriver. If you can't get this off, you can take your screwdriver, and remember, you're not putting it in the crack between the two pieces of metal. You're putting it right against that lip, and you're going to start hitting that screwdriver with a hammer, and it's going to push the cover out. Do whatever you got to do. Okay, so I've got mine off, and now I need to tighten it to between 13 and 15 foot-pounds. And if you remember, your torque wrench, your units of measurement are inch-pounds, so we have to do some multiplication. So 13 times 12, let's see, 14 times 12, I should know this. 10 times 12 is 120 plus 36, so 156, 168. So around between 150, 160, 170, that's where we want this to go. Is that correct? Yeah. Seems like a lot, and it is. And the other thing that sucks about this is while we're trying to tighten this, this is going to want to turn, and if it turns, it goes out of timing. So we have to take our wooden hammer or our wooden mallet handle and jam it in here to keep this from turning while we tighten this. None of this is easy, but nothing good ever is. All right. Remember, it's really hard to get this through here. So you take the 10 millimeter socket off, you put the extension through. Wow, I can't even get the extension through. Interesting. So, bit of a problem. I can't get my extension through here to get to this. So I think part of that solution is going to be taking this side. I'm going to back this side off that much. And that gives us a little bit more wiggle room here. Let's see if that makes a difference. Yes. Okay. So don't take it all the way off. See if you can back it off this much, about a 1/2 inch. Got my 10 millimeter, putting it on the end of this. And I'm going to take my wooden handle. I'm going to hold that handle. I'm going to have to hold it. I'm going to push down pretty tight. Get my socket on the bolt and start turning. It's going to be pretty easy at first. And then you got to really start pushing down on that socket, or on the sprocket. And while you're holding that, start turning your torque wrench until you get to about 150. Okay, that's really tight. Might be a 2-person job. Take the socket off the end, pull your ratchet out, your torque wrench, and then put your end cap back on. Rotate your engine around until you get the other bolt up top. Take off the end cap. See if you can get the extension through there this time without having to deal with the other end, and you cannot. So the same thing I did before, I'm going to pull this off a little bit. See if that gives us enough wiggle room. It does. Extension in, socket on, able to get it on the bolt. Now I need to grab my mallet or hammer, push down on the sprocket, get the torque wrench on, push down hard, and start torquing that bolt, and hopefully the sprocket doesn't turn, and go until you get to 150. Oh, wow. Okay. Definitely a two-person job. All right. Now, I am going to put this guy back on. And I'm going to rotate the engine and get the LT mark matched up with the mark on the get these, and get this matched up again. LT mark right there. And now I look up here to make sure that my L mark is straight up and down and my line is straight across, and it is not. You can see right here that the L mark is not at 12 o'clock. And when I compare that line going across the cam sprocket with the line of the cam base, they are not parallel. So I am out of timing. And that means I have to take things apart and try it again. That's really irritating. So there is a chance that I can take off this end cover and this end cover and wiggle this thing around, and maybe I can make it go into timing while not having to take things apart. So I'm going to attempt that. And I'm going to let you see that I'm doing this because it's common enough that you may have the same problem. That stinks. Okay, taking both of these off. And I know when it happened. I know that when I was tightening these bolts with the torque wrench, it slipped because I wasn't pushing hard enough down with the hammer. Okay, so my rotor, my alternator is still at the LT mark. Sometimes you can like force this thing to skip a tooth. But sometimes when you're trying to move this, the LT mark moves, which it did. So I'm going to have to hold that, and maybe I can... Nope. I'm not able to wiggle this thing enough to make it skip a tooth. Or can I? Nope, it's not working. That really stinks. Okay, well, I have to take those, at least one bolt off, if not two. Hold that. Okay, pushing down hard. can take this out with my fingers now that it's loose. Put it safely aside, and maybe now I can T-mark is there, and I'm still not where I need to be. It's literally one tooth off. That's horrible. So I'm just going to rotate the engine, and weirdly, that was the key. I rotated the engine a little bit, and because this cam chain was not tight, the crankshaft spun, the chain slipped a little bit. So now I put this mark on the I put the LT on the mark, and when I look at the cam chain and the sprocket, things are lined up. So I'm going to attempt to put that bolt back in and torque it down. I'm going to just try it again. Okay. Bolt goes in. This timing, this is one of the most frustrating parts of the entire build. There have been times where it took me 1 hour, maybe 2 hours to get this part done correctly. The engine will not run if this timing is off. Bolt is in. LT mark is where it needs to be. Nub is at 12 o'clock. L mark is at 12 o'clock. Line across the cam sprocket is horizontal, or is parallel with this line. It is perfectly horizontal. Trying to torque it again. Hammer handle. Can't really get that. There we go. The LT mark moved a tiny bit. Just want to make sure that I don't have to do this for a third time. Okay, torque wrench is on. Pressing down hard with the handle. Maybe not hard enough. Oh, did it move? Be okay. Torquing that to 150. Now, let's make sure we got things where we need to be. LT mark on the money, and everything's good. So right here, I've got L mark at 12 o'clock, line across the top is parallel to this line. When I get my eyeball lined up here, I look across this way. The nub is at 12 o'clock. The LT mark is matched up with a little mark. So, I got lucky, and I hope you did too. What we want to do now is we are going to put the right side cam end cover on. So hold this thing so it doesn't move, so it doesn't spin. Get the end cover on like that. Make sure you're still good. Make sure you're still at 12 o'clock. Make sure you're still parallel. Make sure the LT mark is still good. Yeah, I'm still in line. Next thing. We got rocker arms and rocker arm shafts. So before you put these in, remember that the rocker arm shafts have these O-rings that need to be replaced. So take these off and put the new ones on. They're in your gasket kit in the big white envelope. There's 4 of them. So pull out 2 and put the new ones on. All right. So take 1 rocker arm and 1 rocker arm shaft. And the rocker arm, they're all the same. The rocker arm, or the rocker arm is going to go right in here. This area right, so if you take your rocker arm shaft and put it in this hole, you see where it goes. You see that it goes across and it has to go through here. So this flat area right here has to be touching the camshaft. This little nub right here is going to be touching the top of the valve. So put this in here like that and try to slide your rocker arm shaft through. Should be that simple. Should be. Nothing ever is. Same thing with this side. Put the rocker arm in, slide the rocker arm shaft in. Sometimes it helps to twist it, because when you twist it, it moves the rocker arm up and down. And we are good on this side. Hopefully this goes on nice and easy, but it's almost never the case. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. We're going to stop right there. This is enough work for today. You should have sprocket on, you should have bolts torqued, you should have the left rocker arm shafts and the left rocker arms in. And your L mark should be at 12, your line should be horizontal, your little nub right here should be at 12 o'clock, and your LT mark on the alternator should be lined up with a little hash mark. And we are done for the day. We're going to hit this side on Monday. This is a difficult task. I highly suggest you get a second person to help. It'll make things much quicker and won't cause as many tears as it does with me when I'm trying to do this. Please email me if you have problems. We can get together. I can guide you through some steps if you need to. It's frustrating, I know, but this is one of those things that you'll feel pretty good about it once you get it done, because it's quite the struggle and it's quite the victory when it's done. All right. I will see you Monday.